What's up, guys? Burger King Gaming back here with more man, I can't even say it straight. Barry Gaming here, back with some more Idle Heroes. And today we're gonna be talking about something I noticed on Reddit. A little bit of confusion because people are like, is this incorrect? Is it correct? We're talking about crit chance, we're talking about crit damage, and there's actually a whole section of the game you guys might have or probably never have visited. And it's the help button. Yes, the help button actually has some useful help in there. So let's talk about it. I'm going to show you guys real quick. This guy right here. Oh, wait, I have to come over here. Sorry. 1 second, guys. If we come over to our other one, here we go. On the Idle Heroes Discord, we talk about, wait, your damage cap is 350%. It's because there's a little bit of information behind the scenes you're not really understanding, and it's correct and not correct all at the same time. Let's get into it. So the main crux is a lot of people don't even go here. You go to settings, you go to help. There are literally pages upon pages of things that you can actually kind of look at. There's ways of, it talks about how to upgrade different things on the hero. It talks about faction restraint. It talks about the faction aura, which used to be more of a thing than it really is. It talks about how the battles progress past round 15, how you get more damage dealt on heroes, and then it actually talks about the base stats and what they do. This is something they post to, I believe, Facebook way back, and they haven't really done it. Most of these don't have any numbers attached to them. Skill damage 1 is cool to note. That is an additional damage dealt by a hero's attack. Is very vague. It's mainly the active ability. The higher the hero skill damage, the more it will do. Only applies to the attacker's attack base damage. Again, it's really confusing. It modifies active abilities and it modifies dot based abilities. Really weird. This is the part a lot of people don't realize. The higher the hero's precision, the less likely their attack will be blocked by their enemy. In addition, for each 1% of precision, the attack will be an additional 0.3, capping at 45. This is why you want to get to 150% precision, because yes, you can go higher than that, but it's not also modifying your attack. So hands up in the comments if you did not know why we talk about the 150% precision cap, mainly in things like Star Expedition. Block chance is a really good defensive stat a lot of people overlook. Determines the hero's chances of blocking an attack. Successful blocks will reduce 30% of normal damage and an extra 20% of critical damage. That is very, very good. Then we get to the big one, crit chance. Obviously caps at 100%. That is pretty much a guarantee unless they have some way to offset that. And then we have critical damage. So this is the big confusing one a lot of people have. Determines the amount of extra damage a critical hit deals. The higher the hero's critical damage, the more damage their critical hit will deal. Caps at 350%. Not the 150% we always talk about, but that's because they don't tell you something right here. So by default, if you have 0% bonus critical damage on your hero sheet, you're still doing 200% of your normal damage. That is just flat baseline. A crit is always going to do more damage than a non-crit, whether you have crit damage or not. Your crit damage stat is actually added on top of the 200% that we know of. So your 150 added to the 200, that's the 350 that they're talking about here. A little bit misleading, and if you don't know that by baseline a crit will do 200% of your normal damage, you're doing double damage. So basically you can almost do like triple damage, essentially is what this is saying. Not quite, 2.5 times. I will be specific here. That's pretty much what you're able to do with your crit damage. Now there are a few things in the game that can modify this, like Scarlet Queen Halor can make the enemy take more critical damage. That's different than adding crit damage to your hero like a lot of abilities do. I think even Lord of Fear Aspen has a way to get crit damage and such. So that's the big one I wanted to talk about because it's very deceiving. Most people might think, oh, I can actually keep going past 150. It's useless. Don't go past 150 on your crit damage. Just don't do it. Armor break is an interesting one. Reduces the enemy's armor by a certain portion, capping at 100. That's why we want to try to get 100 in Star Expedition as well, because we're not using heroes like Drake. Control immunity. Again, caps at 100, but there's a lot of other things that go into control immunity nowadays, which is interesting. Damage reduction, actual damage reduction will cap at 75%. It doesn't go higher than that. And all your damage reduction, I believe, is multiplicative, not additive. So if you have 50% here and 25% there, I believe it's multiplicative on damage reduction, so it's really hard to get to that full 75% cap. Holy damage is a damage that ignores the armor. As you guys have seen recently in our Sealand videos, we use the armor buff for the imprint on our Void heroes, and wow, does that make your hero tanky. Sadly, there's nothing to click in game that tells you how much your armor is actually reducing the incoming damage, but it is a lot. The only damage that gets around that is, of course, heroes like Sword Flash Shi, where it specifically says armor ignoring damage, or holy damage, which is bonus damage. It's not taking a portion of your attack and converting it to holy damage. It's just additional damage. Then, of course, there's a couple other ones. There's a lot of them, they don't really go into much detail here. All damage reduction, again, same as damage reduction. These are different stats that can cap separately. Energy, a hero starts with 50. This is something a lot of people don't know. They gain 50 energy after using a basic attack, 10 energy when being hit by an enemy's active or basic, not passive skills, and 20 energy when you get critically hit. A lot of people might not know this because we really saw this back in the day, probably 2020, 2021, when you're doing Aspen Dungeon and you have 0 energy, you hit the enemies, all 4 of the 4 enemies hit you. Technically, if they don't crit, you only end up with 90 energy, therefore no active, which means your hero probably dies. That's why when we do still occasionally do Aspen Dungeon, we're like, please crit, please crit, please crit. We want that enemy to crit us to give us that little bit of extra energy. And then for every skill point above 100, the hero will deal an additional 1% skill damage to boost the active skill. Again, this is another thing that we really only talk about in Sealand, and that's because, well, use a demon potion. You can use multiple demon potions because a demon potion gives you 300 energy. That turns into 300% extra skill damage if you were already at 100%. And the interesting thing with Aspen Dungeon 2 is if you have 100% shown, you can actually have more than 100% energy stored up. It's very hard to tell. You have to know how to keep track of it. Energy was a very big deal back in the day, not so much anymore, but that is pretty much all the battle stats. This is something I wanted to make sure was clarified. We have talked about it in the past, but there's a decent amount of information in here. There's not necessarily, oh wait. Oh, this is warriors have high HP and high defense but low attack. What? Oh, this is like probably back from 2016 when they were creating the game. So there's a lot of good information. I just want to put it out there, but not all of it is actually relevant. Take it with a grain of salt. Don't just come in here and say, oh, the game says this, I want to go with it. Try to follow it. And then you have the faction stuff down here. Strange heroes will take 30% more damage. And if you have that positive buff, you get 15% additional precision. There's a lot of stuff missing here, but it is not too bad. It's not too bad. And then on top of that, you also have the Idler's Guidebook that you can go through too. I don't think I've ever once gone through this. And I think it's just how to acquire actual things in the game. So yeah, hopefully it clarifies some stuff for you. Hopefully you guys enjoy this one. Hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys next time.